Prabhum Tata Chanavatar Chaitanya-lila Vistarakarino Dronityananda Parabja Narunarena Bhushito Vyakta Chano Burachincho Vavande Vyasadupino Shri Guru Gaur Gandharva Govindas Ganai Saha Jayanti Patakaschacha Sarvesham Gurunartino. So we are continuing with our reading of Chaitanya-charitamrita. We are in the Antya-lila, chapter 19, the inconceivable behavior of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And we are hearing of Mahaprabhu's ecstatic mood of divine love and separation from Krishna. So we're right at the end of the chapter. And So one way this has been expressed. So Mahaprabhu, he's what is the internal reason for Mahaprabhu descending? He's exploring the inner heart of Srimati Radharani, and in particular, the mood of separation, the depths of divine love that manifest in the mood of separation, because they are the most intense. And so there were two focal points within that Leela of the Lord's. And one is the meeting at Kurukshetra, and that is something that in particular is discussed during the Ratha Yatra pastimes. The meeting of Krishna and the Braja Gopis at Kurukshetra, when the separation actually reaches its zenith point. Rather than getting relief, because Krishna is there in a different aspect, in a different dress, in a different mood, with different company, the Braja Gopis, far from being relieved of their separation, the separation intensifies. So this is one focal point within this exploration of Mahaprabhu, of the mood of separation. And another focal point is the Brahmara Gita. When Srimati Radharani meets with this bumblebee, and this is in the course of Uddhava's visit, when Krishna, he's been gone for many years, and he sent Uddhava to give, because Uddhava's Krishna's closest friend in Dwaraka. Uddhava looks like Krishna. He has the luster of his body has the same dark blue luster. Looks like Krishna, and is very close to Krishna. He's described sometimes as Krishna's, closest associate. So at one time, Krishna sends him to Vrindavan to give relief to the Braja Gopis. And during that visit, there's this one incident when Srimati Radharani encounters this bumblebee, and the bumblebee, is black and yellow like Krishna, and so she takes this bumblebee as a messenger of Krishna, and she begins venting this mood of divine love, sometimes praising Krishna, sometimes abusing Krishna, and so it's very ecstatic mood that comes out there. And so that type of mood is also expressed sometimes in Mahaprabhu's expressions of divine love. And so we ended this chapter, and Kaviraj Goswami references that section of Srimad Bhagavatam. It's in Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th canto. And it's, it's very high, these verses. Superficially they're describing, someone's, loving mood in a relationship with their lover, but there is so much divine sentiment behind that. So we approach this with care and caution. And Srila Sridhar, we've heard that we've never heard it, but we've heard of it, that Srila Sridhar Maharaj gave a very profound explanation of this chapter once. And it actually, during that occasion when Srila Sridhar Maharaj personally took Srila Gurudev, Srila Govinda Maharaj on Vrindavan Prikrama, then there was one occasion that Srila Sridhar Maharaj gave this very profound explanation, and we've heard it was astounding. I've heard Gurudev mention it, and also I heard Srila Sridhar Maharaj mention it in one of the tapes how he kind of made like a bit of a joke, because one of his godbrothers, I think this was in Mathura, he had a bomb shelter built underneath his temple. No, remember this period, and Aisha Bandhu was mentioning this the other day. It's a very interesting point. Like, the time in which Srila Sridhar Maharaj was preaching, it was a very heavy social time in the world and within India, right? World War II just passed. 1947, the year that Gurudev joined. Like, the World War II ended in 45, right? And then the other thing is this, like, a few months after Gurudev joined is when the partition officially took place. So there's so much violence and chaos going on in India. There's, the free liberation from the British rule. There's the division between Muslims and Hindus, and there's all kinds of madness going on. But it's interesting because you never hear Gurudev or Srila Sridhar Maharaj talk about that. They're very think of the environment in which the Gaudiya Math was preaching Mahaprabhu's message, but you don't hear them talk about that. They're keeping things on that higher level, always, not influenced by the relative circumstances. So anyway, Srila Sridhar Maharaj mentioned how maybe it was in Mathura. But he visited one of his godbrothers who had in his temple, he had a bomb shelter built underneath his temple. And Srila Sridhar Maharaj mentioned how he had and I don't know if this is the same occasion that Gurudev was talking about, but Srila Sridhar Maharaj mentioned how he gave an explanation of the Brahmara Gita, like sitting in that bomb shelter. and then he kind of like jokes like sitting in that low place and talking about these high things. So Kaviraj Goswami is referencing that section of Bhagavatam, the Brahmara Gita here. The evidence of the truth of these talks is found in Srimad Bhagavatam. There, in the section of the 10th canto known as the Brahmara Gita, the song to the bumblebee, Srimati Radharani speaks insanely in ecstatic love for Krishna. And so now Srila Swami Maharaj Prabhupada, he has a purport where he's giving like an excerpt from that chapter. So I'll read just a few of the verses are cited here in the purport. So I would like to read that. They're very, very beautiful. And we hear them with caution, of course. So, purport. When Uddhava arrived from Mathura, carrying a message for the gopis began talking about Krishna and crying. Then Srimati Radharani saw a bumblebee and began speaking to it like someone mad, thinking that the bee was a messenger of Uddhava's or was someone very dear to him and Krishna. The verses are as follows. And also, I'll mention that, they were a little frustrated, the Braja Gopis, because Krishna sent Uddhava with these messages, which were kind of like impersonal, like, just meditate on me and you will come to me. And they're like, come on, like, we wish we could stop meditating on you, We just want our intimate family relationship with you that we had before. Don't treat us like, we're not yogis, we're not jnanis. So they were a little frustrated. So, okay, so the verses are as follows. And these verses, also Gurudev, we've heard Gurudev quote some of these verses. Madhupa kitava bando mash prasangrim sapatnya kucha vilulita mala kunkuma Shma Shubirna Vahatu Madhupatistan Manininam Prasadam Yadu Sadasi Vidambyam Yasya Dutastam Idrik. So Radharani addressing this bumblebee that she's encountered in the garden. My dear bumblebee, you are a very cunning friend of Uddhava and Krishna. You are very expert in touching people's feet, but I am not going to be misled by this. You appear to have sat on the breasts of one of Krishna's friends, for I see that you have kumkum dust on your mustache. Krishna is now engaged in flattering all his young girlfriends in Mathura. Therefore, now that he can be called a friend of the residents of Mathura, he does not need the help of the residents of Vrindavan. He has no reason to satisfy us gopis. Since you are the messenger of such a person as he, what is the use of your presence here? Certainly Krishna would be ashamed of your presence in this assembly. So that's the verse. How has Krishna offended the gopis so that they want to reject him from their minds? The answer is given as follows. And now this is another verse from that section. Sakrida dada sudam swam mohinim payayitva sumanasa eva sadyas tatyajesman bhavajik padichadati katam tadpada padmam tu padma yapi bhata hrita cheta uttama shloka jalpai. Krishna no longer gives us the enchanting nectar of his lips. Instead, he now gives that nectar to the women of Mathura. Krishna directly attracts our minds, yet he resembles a bumblebee like you because he gives up the association of a beautiful flower and goes to a flower that is inferior. That is the way Krishna has treated us. I do not know why the goddess of fortune continues to serve his lotus feet instead of leaving them aside. Apparently she believes in Krishna's false words. We gopis, however, are not unintelligent like Lakshmi. So that's the end of that verse. After hearing the bumblebee's sweet songs and recognizing that the bee was singing about Krishna for her satisfaction, the gopi replied, Kim iha bahu shad angre gayasi tvam yadunam adipatim agrahanam agratona paranam vijaya saka sakinam giyatam tat prasanga Kshapita kucha rujaste kalpayantishtam ishta. Dear bumblebee, Lord Krishna has no residence here, but we know him as Yadupati, the king of the Yadu dynasty. So this is, little sarcastic, because he's like saying he's left us in Vrindavan, now he's become the lord of the Yadus. He's Yadu in Dwaraka. We know him very well, and therefore we are not interested in hearing any more songs about him. It would be better for you to go sing to those who are now very dear to Krishna. Those women of Mathura have now achieved the opportunity of being embraced by him. They are his beloveds now, and therefore he has relieved the burning in their breasts. If you go there and sing your songs to those fortunate women, they will be very pleased and they will honor you. Divi bhuvi charasayam kastriyas taddurapaha kapataruchi rahasa bhu vijimbasya yasyu chadanarajo pashte yasya bhutir vayam ka apicha kripana pakshe hutama shloka shabdaha. O collector of honey, Krishna must be very sorry not to see us gopis. Surely he is afflicted by memories of our pastimes. Therefore he has sent you as a messenger to satisfy us. Do not speak to us. All the women in the three worlds where death is inevitable, the heavenly, middle, and lower planets are very easily available to Krishna because his curved eyebrows are so attractive. Moreover, he is always served very faithfully by the goddess of fortune. In comparison with her, we are most insignificant. Indeed, we are nothing. Yet although he is very cunning, Krishna is also very charitable. You may inform him that he is praised for his kindness to unfortunate persons, and that he is therefore known as Uttama Shlok, one who is praised by chosen words and verses. Vishujja shirasi padam vedmyaham chatukader anunaya vidushaste buyetya dodir mukundat swakrita iha vishishta patya patyanya loka vyashajad aprita cheta kimnu sandeyam asmin. You are buzzing at my feet just to be forgiven for your past offenses. Kindly go away from my feet. I know that Mukunda has taught you to speak very sweet, flattering words like this and to act as his messenger. These are certainly clever tricks, my dear bumblebee, but I can understand them. This is Krishna's offense. Do not tell Krishna what I have said, although I know that you are very envious. We gopis have given up our husbands, our sons, and all the religious principles that promise better births. And now we have no business other than serving Krishna. Yet Krishna, by controlling his mind, has easily forgotten us. Therefore, don't speak of him anymore. Let us forget our relationship. Mrugayor eva kapindram vivyade lubda dharma striyam krita virupam srijita kamayanam balim api balim atvavid vishtaya dvangsha vadyas tadalam masita sakyer dushtya jastat katarta. When we remember the past births of Krishna, my dear bumblebee, we are very much afraid of him. In his incarnation as Lord Ramachandra, he acted just like a hunter and unjustly killed his friend Bali. Lusty Surpanaka came to satisfy Ramachandra's desires, but he was so attached to Sita Devi that he cut off Surpanaka's nose. In his incarnation as Vamanadev, he plundered Bali Maharaj and took all his possessions, cheating him on the pretext of accepting worship from him. Vamanadev caught Bali Maharaj exactly as one catches a crow. My dear bumblebee, it is not very good to make friends with such a person. I know that once one begins to it's very humorous, because like all of these like incidents in different avatars of Krishna, you could like interpret them to show how he's like very exploitative. You know, Surpanaka was a demoness actually, you know. That you could see it like that. Like she just wanted to have a romantic relationship with you, and you were so cruel, you cut off her nose and rejected her. And Bali Maharaj, he'd taken control of like all the three worlds, so he needed to be rectified. But you could say, oh, well, you plundered him dishonestly. My dear bumblebee, it is not very good to make friends with such a person. I know that once one begins to talk about Krishna, it is very difficult to stop. And I admit that I have insufficient strength to give up talking about him. If only I had that problem. Now this verse is very famous, this following one. Yad quoted many times by our gurus. Yad Antya-lila karna piyusha viprut sakrida dana viduta dvandva dharma vinashta Saparigriha kutumbam dinam uchijya dina bahava iha vihanga bhikshucharyam charanti. Topics about Krishna are so powerful that they destroy the 4 religious principles: religion, economic development, sense gratification, and liberation. Anyone who drinks even a small drop of Krishna Katha through oral reception is freed from all material attachment and envy. I mean, literally the word is vinashta, which means like destroyed. You know? One who's heard one drop of the nectar of Krishna-lila through the ears, their worldly dharma, it will be destroyed. Like a bird with no means of subsistence. So this can be taken in different ways, so be careful. This could ruin your life. Like a bird with no means of subsistence, such a person becomes a mendicant and lives by begging. Ordinary household affairs, so like a bird goes from tree to tree for some food, such a person, they lose everything and they have to maintain themselves through begging. Ordinary household affairs become miserable for him, and without attachment, he suddenly gives up everything. Although such renunciation is quite suitable, because I am a woman, I am unable to adopt it. I'd like to see another translation of that verse, but anyway. Vayamritam eva jima vyahritam shradadanaha kulikarutam ivagya Krishna vadvo hiranya dajishur asakrid eta tanaka sparsha tibra smanaruja upamantanim banyatam anyavarta. Gurudev mentioned how Srila Shridhar should quote this. Please talk about something else. I don't want to hear about Krishna, please. Anyavarta, anything else, something else, Please. Oh, my dear messenger, I am just like a foolish bird that hears the sweet songs of a hunter, believes in them due to simplicity, and is then pierced in the heart and made to suffer all kinds of miseries. Because we believed in Krishna's words, we have suffered great pain. Indeed, the touch of Krishna's nails has injured our faces. He has caused us so much pain. Therefore, you should give up topics concerning him and talk about something else. After hearing all these statements from Srimati Radhika, the bumblebee left and then returned. After some thought, the gopi said, Priyasaka punar aga prayasa prishita kim varaya kim anurunde mananiyo simenga nayasika tam mihasman dushtyaja dvandva parshvam satatam urasi somya shirvadu sakam aste. You are Krishna's very dear friend, and by his order you have come here again. Therefore you are worshipable for me. O best of messengers, tell me now, what is your request? What do you want? Krishna cannot give up conjugal love, and therefore I understand that you have come here to take us to him. But how will you do that? We know that many goddesses of fortune now reside at Krishna's chest, and they constantly serve Krishna better than we can. Praising the bumblebee for its sobriety, she began to speak in great jubilation. Api bhata madhu puryam aryaputro dunashte smarati sapitra geham somya bandhum shagopam kvachidapi sakatana kinkadinam granite bhujam aguru sugandham murd yadasyat kadanu. Krishna is now living like a gentleman at the Gurukul in Mathura, forgetting all the gopis of Vrindavan. But does he not remember the sweet house of his father, Nanda Maharaj? We are all naturally his maidservants. Does he not remember us? Does he ever speak about us, or has he forgotten us completely? Will he ever forgive us and once again touch us with those hands fragrant with the scent of a guru? And that's the end of that section, this purport with these excerpts. And that last verse reminded me, there's another very beautiful expression of Srimati Radharani that Gurudev liked very much, saying, or maybe by the Braja Gopis, but saying, like appealing, to Krishna, actually we don't care about our own suffering, you can treat us wherever you want, but what about Mother Jashoda? What about Mother Jashoda? How can you treat her in this way? Very, very heart-rending expressions. Okay, now we are on verse 108 of this chapter of Chaitanya-charitamrita. Back to the main text. Mahishir Gita Jeno Dashamena Sheshe Panditena Bhujeta Arta Visheshe. The songs of the queens at Dwarka, which are mentioned at the end of the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, have a very special meaning. They are not understood even by the most learned scholars. So now Srila Swami Maharaj has a purport with some of these expressions of the queens of Dwarka. These songs of Srimad Bhagavatam are verses 15 to 24 of the 90th chapter of the 10th canto. Kuradi vilapasi tvamvita nijana sheshe swapiti jagati vachayam ishvaro gupta bodha vayam eva saki kachit gada nirbina cheta nalina nayana hasodada nilekshitena. All the queens incessantly thought of Krishna. After their pastimes in the water, the queen said, "O dear friends, the osprey," so this is a bird, so they're addressing this bird in the water. "O dear friends, the osprey, Krishna is now asleep, but we stay awake at night because of him. You laugh at us when you see us awake at night, but why are you not sleeping? You seem absorbed in thoughts of Krishna. Have you also been pierced by Krishna's smile? His smile is very sweet. One who is pierced by such an arrow is very fortunate." So this is the nature of things, when one is absorbed very intensely in a particular subjective reality, then that becomes projected, right, on the environment. And we interpret everything according to that subjective reality, right? So in the case of, these high, associates of the Lord, they're so intensely absorbed in this mood of divine love that, they're seeing that everyone in the environment, even the bumblebees and the birds, they're all related, somehow, they're all in the same situation, or they're connected in some way to this inner reality. And we have to be in some kind of illusion, right? Whether it's material or spiritual, Mahamaya or Yoga Maya. But of course, in the case of Vrindavan, and then everyone is in on it in some way or another. But also we hear these descriptions of Mahaprabhu, when he sees a lake, he thinks of Jamuna. When he sees the forest, he thinks of Vrindavan, like that. When he sees a hill or a mountain, he thinks of Govardhan. Nitya nimilayas, it's a different meter. So this is another verse. Nitya nimilayasi naktam ajishta, this is also the queens of Dwarka. Ajishta bandhus tvam roda rishi karunam vata chakravaki dasyam gatavayam ivachuta pada jushtam kim vashajam shprihayase kavadena vodam. O Chakravaki, so this is another kind of bird. You keep your eyes wide open at night because you cannot see your friend. Indeed, you are suffering very much. Is it because of compassion that you are crying, or are you trying to capture Krishna by remembering him? Having been touched by the lotus feet of Krishna, all the queens are very happy. Are you crying to wear Krishna's garland on your head? Please answer these questions clearly, O Chakravaki, so that we can understand. Srila Sridhar Maharaj also mentioned one simple expression, some maybe Bengali expression, I think maybe even from a, what was it from? I can't remember. But anyway, the line I'm remembering, it's in addressing the the natural environment. Oh mountains, you are so high. You've gone so high. Have you seen God there? Everything is just related. Gurudev, I like to remember how Gurudev, when he was in Mauritius, there was some mountain nearby the temple, and Gurudev said he called it Guru Maharaj Mountain because it reminded him of Guru Maharaj. Because Guru is heavier than a mountain, right? Heavier than the Himalayas, it is mentioned. Guru is heavy, it's the meaning of Guru. Bo sada nishtanase udanvam alabda nidro digata prajagada kim va mukunda paritatma lanchana praptam dasham tvam jagato duratyayam. O ocean, you have no opportunity to sleep quietly at night. Instead, you're always awake and crying. You have received this benediction and your heart is broken just like ours. Mukunda's business with us is simply to smear our marks of kumkum. O ocean, you suffer as much as we. Tvam yakshamana balavatas grihita indo kshinastamo nanija didi tibi kshinoshi kachin mukunda gaditani yatavayam tvam vishmritya bo stagita gir upalakshya sena. O moon, you appear to be suffering from a severe fever, perhaps tuberculosis. Indeed, your effulgence does not have the strength to destroy the darkness. Have you become mad after hearing the songs of Krishna? Is that why you are silent? Seeing your suffering, we feel that you are one of us. Quim tvachaditam asmabir Antya-lila te priyam Govinda panga nirbine hridirayasi nasmadam. O Malayan breeze, kindly tell us what wrong we have done to you. Why do you fan the flames of desire in our hearts? We have been pierced by the arrow of Govinda's glance, for he is perfect in the art of awakening the influence of Cupid. Mega Shrimams Tamasi Daito Yadavendrasya Nunam Shivat Sankam Vayam Iva Bhavan Jayati Prema Baddha Atyutkanta Shavala Hridayosmad Vido Bashpadaraha Shmitva Vishajasi Mahur Dukadas Tat Prasangaha. Dear cloud, O friend of Krishna's, are you thinking of the Srivatsa symbol on Krishna's chest? Like us queens engaged in loving affairs with him, you are absorbed in meditation, remembering the association of Krishna, and thus you shed tears of misery. Priyarava padani bashase mrita sanjeevi kayanaya gira karavani kim adyate priyam vadame valgita kanta kokila. Dear Kaku, or Kokil, you possess a very sweet voice and you are very expert in imitating others. You could excite even a dead body with your voice. Therefore, tell the queens that good behavior is their proper duty. Na chalasi na vadasyudada buddhe kshiti dada chintayasi mahantamartam api bhata vasudeva nandanangnim vayam eva kamayase staner vidartam. O magnanimous mountain, you are very grave and sober, absorbed in thoughts of doing something very great. Like us, you have vowed to keep within your heart the lotus feet of Krishna, the son of Vasudeva. Shushya jada kadashita bhata sindhu patnya sampratya pasta kamala shriya ishta bhartu yadvadvayam madhupate panayavalokam aprapya mushta hridaya purukarshitasma. O rivers, wives of the ocean, we see that the ocean does not give you happiness. Thus you have almost dried up and you no longer bear sunshine. Thus you have almost dried up and you no longer bear beautiful lotuses. The lotuses have become skinny, and even in the sunshine they are devoid of all pleasure. Similarly, the hearts of us poor queens are all dried up, and our bodies are skinny because we are now devoid of loving affairs with Madhupati. Are you like us, dry and without beauty because you are devoid of Krishna's loving glance? Hamsa swagatam asyatam pibapayo bruhyanga shode katam dutam tvam nu vidama kachid ajita shvashtashta uktam pura kim va naschala sohrida smradatitam kasmad bhajamo vayam kshodra lapaya kamadam shriyam rite saivaika nishta shriyam. O swan, you have come here so happily. Let us welcome you. We understand that you are always Krishna's messenger. Now while you drink this milk, tell us what his message is. Has Krishna said something about us to you? May we inquire from you whether Krishna is happy. We want to know. Does he remember us? We know that the goddess of fortune is serving him alone. We are simply maidservants. How can we worship him who speaks sweet words but never fulfills our desires? That's the end of that purport. And back to the main text. Mahaprabhu Nityananda Dohar Dase Das Jade Kripa Korentar Hoite Vishwas. If one becomes a servant of the servants of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Lord Nityananda Prabhu and is favored by them, he can believe in all these discourses. Shraddha kore shuno iha shunite mahasuk kandi beha jatmikare kutar kariduk. Just try to hear these topics with faith, for there is great pleasure even in hearing them. That hearing will destroy all miseries pertaining to the body, mind, and other living entities, and the unhappiness of false arguments as well. Chaitanya-charitamrita nityanutan shunita judai hridoy shravam. Sri Chaitanya-charitamrita is ever increasingly fresh. For one who hears it again and again, the heart and ear become pacified. Shri Rupa Raghunath Bhade Jaharaj Chaitanya-charitamrita Kohe Krishna Das. Praying at the lotus feet of Shri Rup and Shri Raghunath, always desiring their mercy, I, Krishna Das, narrate Shri Chaitanya-charitamrita, following in their footsteps. Jai Shri Chaitanya-charitamrita ki jai, Shri Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami ki jai. Very, very beautiful expressions. So we've come to the end of the 19th chapter, and the next chapter is the very last chapter, the Shikshashtakam, Shikshashtak prayers. It's the last chapter, Chaitanya-charitamrita.
Last chapter of the Chaitanya-charitamrita.
Yeah, the Shikshashtakam prayers. We can begin that tomorrow. All right. Do you feel like singing? No? Going to sing Brajamahini? Kani Haraya Nama Krishna Jadavaya Nama Jadavaya Krishnavaya Nama Gopal Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudana